Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddham dhammang sanghang namasami. Dear friends, this is the last of a sequence of talks that I was invited to give for Buddhist Insights. I am speaking to you from the Carolina Buddhist Vihara in Greenville, South Carolina, where I have been visiting for the past few weeks. And having completed this series, in another 1 week, I will be departing from this house and going to a off-grid cabin at the Aranya Bodhi Hermitage in California, staying in a secluded meditation retreat for the following 4 months. This is a tremendous gift and an opportunity. During the past few sessions, we have been speaking about the First Noble Truth, the truth about dukkha, in terms of the 5 aggregates, which comprise what we identify with and what we cling to, the aggregates of form, this living body, the feeling, the perceptions, the volitional formations, and consciousness, all wrapping together in a kind of a tight bundle, which can be difficult to control. And then we spoke about dukkha in terms of sickness and death, and how to make the contemplation of sickness and death a inspiration to practice well and increase our sincerity in practicing. We spoke in terms of how for the beginner in practice, the simple desire to reduce or get out of suffering can be a tremendous motivation. And the beauty of this path of practice in reducing the experience of dukkha with the beginner level teachings is it's part of the skillfulness of the Buddhist method that one can see from the very beginning. Even somebody who doesn't have a lot of wisdom can see that by letting go of unskillful habits, it's possible to experience a release from suffering by simply developing a bit of mindfulness and looking with compassion and honesty at what we have within can cut the suffering in half by beginning to practice the Brahma Viharas of kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity. We can tremendously allay suffering and step out of this world of pain. And then we spoke a little bit later about how for somebody who has been practicing for a longer time, who's developed a certain level of sanity, it can still happen that something comes along that triggers a negative reaction, or that anger springs up, or depression, or fear, or some other afflictive emotion springs up in response to a trigger. We may find that if we feel disrespected, or if we feel what we believe to be right and wrong, virtuous and unvirtuous, and then we see behavior that's seems to be evil, negative behavior, then that internal reaction comes up and says, "Oh, that's not right. Oh, how wrong that is," and it comes with a certain kind of a tightness. And so this dukkha, in the context of the Four Noble Truths, is actually a method to keep on investigating our own experience with the overall theory, or the overall method, that whenever that kind of painful, afflictive reaction comes up, there is something that we are clinging to. And we might not recognize it as something that we're clinging to. But if we investigate on that theory, if we can discover, oh, I'm clinging to my opinions, oh, I'm clinging to my status, oh, I'm clinging to my safety, oh, I'm clinging to existence itself, feeling what is beneficial for my existence, and so on, like that. And then when we recognize that, if we become willing to let it go, or if we find out how to let go of that clinging, then we can drop off another 5 pounds of dukkha from this whole mass that we are carrying around with us, whether it's on the surface or whether it's something that's underlying. Today I'm thinking to focus in particular on Vedana. That's the Pali word, which is usually translated as feeling or sensation. And I'd like to invite us to sit for meditation for 30 minutes, particularly being aware of what the tone of the feeling is that arises. And if one notices how the feelings, how those pleasant, unpleasant sensations based on the sense, the contact of the senses, how they arise and pass, how they are continuously flowing and changing. So with that brief introduction, I invite you to come to a balanced and upright posture for meditation. Letting go of any agitation from earlier in the day. Letting go of any plans or worries about the future. Willing to just be here for what arises in the meditation, in the here and now. and inclining the mind to calm and relaxation. Inclining towards stillness. Aware of the physical body in the upright posture, pressing on the cushion or the seat. Aware of the sensations from the top of the head, the face, the neck, the shoulders, arms, hands, the front of the body, the legs, knees, lower legs, ankles, feet, where the legs and feet are touching the cushion. The lower back, middle back, upper back, back of the head, and top of the head, and just scanning up and down for the sensation, the touching sensation of the body from head to toe, from toe to head. If awareness can stay with this object of the sensations of the body, noticing how that feels. If awareness is drifting away, going somewhere else, notice how that feels. And keep coming back to the sensations with the body. Awareness is a stable point among the many pinpricks or dancing moments of many different sensations. So, Vedana, um, the Vedana, the feeling happens when there's a contact with an object. The pleasant feeling is pleasant and soothing. The unpleasant is painful and hurting. The neither pleasant nor unpleasant is neither soothing or comforting and not hurting. Vedana is part of this realm of dukkha, part of what keeps us going around and around in samsara. When it's the panchupadana kanda of Vedana, so when it's the Vedana that's affected by that clinging, the samsaric Vedana. One of the suttas that I looked at in preparation for this is called Salayatana Sutta. That's 137 in the middle length discourses. And they talk about the householder's feeling. It's a geha sita. It's a geha nisita. So the geha is the house. In the Pali language, the geha is from the verb ganhati, which is to grab, to grasp. And through the evolution of language, in the English, it is a yard or a garden, is coming from this Pali word or the related Sanskrit root for geha. Years ago, I used to belong to a community garden in the city where we had, I think we had 50 members of the club, and each member had a plot of land that they, took care of, and they kept the same little plot over many years. It was quite interesting to me in seeing the culture of the garden, because the gardeners got to be so attached and stuck in and connected to their garden because they had put so much like fertilizer into the garden and so much work over a long period of time cultivating it and getting it to be just the way they wanted it. So there was they had the cultural characteristic of the gardeners in my club was grasping. One of our members was expelled for bad behavior, and he sued the community garden in there's some kind of a small claim that is done without a lawyer through mediation with the city, and he wanted to be able to excavate all of the soil from his garden and take it away to another garden somewhere else. This is grasping. So the householder Vedana is the Vedana that keeps us going around in samsara, that keeps us attached to our existence. This is not from Buddhism, but from popular science, modern science. You could say that the function of feeling is that it's a very rapid, intuitive, quick motivator that springs up that enables us to protect our life. So if you're walking down the road and there's a herd of elephants coming, stampeding down the road, you don't have to think about it cognitively or rationally about it. You just feel the fear and you jump out of the road to get out of the way of that danger. Or if you are hungry and you come across some food that's tasty and nutritious and it's got a smell, the pleasant smell and the pleasant look, and then your mouth begins to salivate and your stomach begins to put out the juice that it's going to use to digest that food, and you get this pleasant feeling, and that's your motivator that makes it just a natural thing to take some food. On another occasion, one time, I've never had difficulties with food disorders, but there was one time when I was in a kind of a traumatic situation personally, in which I lost my appetite. This went on for about a week, and it was it was like so difficult to eat because the food was not pleasant at that time. It just, the mouth didn't salivate, the stomach didn't churn, the body was not doing what the body should be doing when it has an opportunity for that kind of nutriment, and also the pleasant feeling wasn't coming along. So you could say that the feeling is very much connected with existence and the craving for existence. In the three kinds of craving are kama tanha, that's the craving for a pleasant sensual experience, pleasant sensual contact. And then the bhava tanha is the craving for existence. So feeling, a pleasant feeling, especially, well, getting more pleasant feeling or getting away from the unpleasant feeling, is got a very big connection with that kama tanha. But then it also, behind that, when you look at the real function of feeling, it's got a big connection with this drive for existence. So that's one of the ways in which you could say that feeling is part of dukkha, part of that aggregate of dukkha. There's another way that you could look at it in terms of being a sort of a fuel for the proliferation of like thoughts and intentions. Let's see. You see a form cognizable by the eye, something pleasant that makes you feel happy. And then you regard that as a gain for you. Something that's wished for, desired, agreeable, gratifying, associated with comfort and safety in this world. Or it could be that you could remember something that you previously gained, that you previously obtained, which is already past and ceased, it's already gone into the past, but nevertheless, just remembering the gains that you had in the past, you feel that joy. And so there's this whole proliferation of this worldly happiness, it's not just like the excitement and sensual pleasure that you would get if you go to a party and fall in love and get involved with, gambling or a roller coaster or something very exciting or very entertaining or really beautiful, or acquiring those delightful sensory experiences. But it's also a kind of happiness that's associated with materialistic happiness. That would be like you have your degree or your certificate that allows you to do your job. You have a house, and you either own the house or you're able to pay the mortgage on the house. You have enough furniture that you need. You have enough food in the pantry. You have an insurance policy. You have good friends. You have a family. You have your partner and your children, and all of them are still liking you and loving you and respecting you and appreciating you. And so this could be some kind of an idea about true happiness in terms of materialistic security. And this is actually one of the descriptions of this kama tanha. I think people misunderstand that as being that it's like kama tanha is like a physical pleasure. But it also has, in the suttas, you see it's associated with having your roof is well thatched and your granary is filled with grain, and your cattle and animals are all in good health, and your children and your partner are all healthy, and that's the other meaning of this kama tanha. It's associated with existence, and it can become then very easily falling over to, you could say, an identity or a fate, like where you live. In Buddhism, we think about merit, where if we do skillful good deeds with skillful intentions, then the result of that would be to be reborn in a pleasant realm of existence. Or if we do unskillful, unwholesome deeds with bad intentions, we would expect subsequently to be reborn in a painful realm of existence. And so this association of Vedana, that pleasant or painful existence, is the outcome of the kama. So the kama is the previous intentional ethical actions that you have done. And then the Vedana, the pleasant or the unpleasant existence, is the fruit of that previous kama. But this is all within this the wheel of samsara. There's another aspect of Vedana, another reason why it's inherently unpleasant. I'm going back to the Arahant Bhikkhuni Dhammadina when she was speaking about Vedana. She said that pleasant feeling is painful when it's over and you no longer have that pleasant feeling. And the unpleasant feeling is pleasant when it's over. if you look back in your whatever kind of like tall tales that you like to tell about your checkered past, you could probably think of occasions that were in which something was like very foolish or very ridiculous or really frightening or really challenging or really horrible, but you were able to survive that bad experience and come out the other side of it. And when you did, you remember, you're like nostalgic about the suffering that you went through in the past. But this can evolve into something which is actually dreadful overall. In modern psychology, it's called a hedonic treadmill. So if you're thinking to find happiness with a pleasant pleasure, and then you get some experience that's really pleasurable, and you want to get more and more of that same pleasurable experience. But with the passage of time, that same thing is not so pleasurable anymore because one becomes satiated. And so just because of the passage of time, that pleasant thing becomes not that pleasant anymore. And even if it becomes something that one is habituated to, that you are sort of like identifying or clinging or with that expectation of something continuing to be the way you are in the habit of having it, then you are all the more in danger of really feeling pained when it changes. There's the story of the there's this particular beverage that I like, and I don't really. It's not that I like it that much, but the word has gotten out among my friends that I like this beverage, and so every day it's always offered to me. And sometimes it's very pleasant, sometimes it's just something habitual, but because of becoming habituated to a certain beverage, then if something happens and they forget to offer that beverage, then this kind of like this jerk comes up, like unpleasant feeling comes up. Where's my beverage? And so people who have an extremely comfortable life without any problems could become, kind of like picky and choosy and easily irritable because of that. And then, painful feeling also when it stops. You feel pleasure, and the worst painful feeling was, the more intense and satisfying the subsequent pleasure is. So if somebody is addicted to something, they could feel really sick and very, mentally and physically very disturbed and sick until they get a chance to get another taste of whatever the substance or the experiences that they're addicted to. And then the addiction is a relief from that suffering. And when you satisfy that craving, it gives you a relief from the suffering. And so that's the reason why, one of the reasons why addictive things are addictive is because they actually contain both pleasure and pain. So the being high with a particular experience is pleasant, and then being like in withdrawal because of the side effect of that thing is painful. Or else, if the pleasure is associated with like foolishness, and then you may be like embarrassed and remorseful about what you did while you were having fun, and then afterwards you feel that remorse and guilt, and so that becomes like a roller coaster. There can be a really sick, mentally ill process where people are going from highs to lows. This is called the hedonic treadmill. There's a passage in the Chula Vedala Sutta that is not very easy to understand, but I think this is what the bhikkhuni is speaking about. She said that painful feeling is the counterpart of pleasant feeling, and pleasant feeling is the counterpart of painful feeling. This is part of a sequence on counterparts. So the pleasant and painful is going back and forth and back and forth. The painful feeling leads to the pleasant feeling. Or they're completed to complementary to each other, like two sides of a coin. You can't really have one without the other. They're mutually interdependent. In this sequence, ignorance is the counterpart of the neutral feeling. And what that is describing, this is a very accurate observation of how things are, in which is similar to what a psychologist could notice in any part of the world or whatever tradition they're in, that the strongly pleasant or strongly painful experiences tend to be remembered, tend to grab onto a disproportionate amount of our attention, could even become sort of like an obsession, that it's something that we repeatedly think about again and again. But those things that are mostly neutral very often are not noticed, especially if a person is onto that roller coaster with the strong pleasant and the strong unpleasant. The more they're on a strong roller coaster, the more they would neglect to notice the moments that are neither painful nor pleasant. And this is where one can actually, a good therapy for someone who's like that would be if they could try to, whether in meditation or throughout the day, like on a meditation retreat or having a quiet day, just try to notice each moment. Notice, what's the feeling right now? What's the feeling right now? Or with each breath, what's the feeling right now? Or every time, if you're going about life, every time you stand up or sit down or change your posture, notice, what's the feeling right now? Every time you see a doorknob, what's the feeling right now? And just try to give like equal weight to each of the moments without giving a stronger weight to the pleasant and unpleasant. Then you can discover how many neutral moments you have in the day. And with that, it's a kind of a realm of freedom, because one is not so strongly compelled to react. I would say that all of the feelings in a certain way are tending towards delusion. Feelings are very quick, but they're not very refined. There are many stories about how one had a certain perception that was like incorrect, and based on that incorrect perception, you get very disturbed or very upset, or very entranced and full of desire. But your perception was not accurate. And then later, if you come to have an accurate perception, then you see how your strong response, your strong desire, your strong aversion was really diluted and mistaken. So the Buddha, in teaching, conjures up the vision of a beautiful young girl, and somebody becomes like filled with desire for that form, and then he causes that vision of that image of that young girl to become aged and sick, and to become dead, and to go through the stages of decomposition. And in that way, the student who's seeing this vision that's been conjured up realizes that his greed regarding the beautiful young girl was delusional, because within every person is this imminent expected potential for aging and death. So one's what happens is that it gets to be kind of circular, doesn't it? That feeling, a strong feeling in somebody who's not mindful and not educated about feeling, someone who's gullible about feeling, then becomes the conditioning factor for inaccurate and biased perceptions. And then those mistaken perceptions get into a feedback loop where then the stronger and stronger feelings get stirred up by those perceptions. So you suppose something happens that I disagree with, and then I get a perception that's very unfair. It's really wrong. And then the mind starts, cogitating and ruminating about how unfair and how wrong that is. And the more that I ruminate on it, I'm building up a picture, and then I'm stirring up more aversive feelings towards that wrong thing, until eventually, in natural psychology, it gets to a level that an intention or a volitional formation is created, and we decide, okay, I have to do something about that. And then, it's like a click, and I feel that I'll be able to take care of my unpleasant feeling by going and taking revenge on that bad person who did that bad thing, or some kind of a mistaken result based on an inaccurate perception that came from taking the bait from that feeling. So in a way, this whole process of proliferation and delusional thinking, that's like feeling is like the gasoline that can keep it going, trigger, get started, and keep it perpetuating. And so in that way, Vedana is definitely an essential element of dukkha. Now, we know that one of the best, one of the greatest solutions is by developing mindfulness and observing this whole process exactly as it is. There's an opportunity to let go of those misguided perceptions or misguided concepts, and to choose a skillful perception or a skillful concept. And one of the whole aspects of this bhavana, this mental training that we're undergoing, is that we realize that actually we have the agency over our own mind. We don't have to be the victim of our thoughts. We don't have to be the victim of our feelings, but instead we can patiently bear up to and receive the feelings which are the outcome, the fruit of previous conditions. And we can choose the concepts, we can develop perceptions that are both truthful and beneficial and healing, and bring those perceptions to bear on a situation so that then it becomes much more easy and natural for skillful, wholesome, beneficial intentions to arise. I'm flipping back and forth between these two suttas. One of them is the Chula Vedala Sutta, where the Arahant Bhikkhuni Dhammadharini is answering questions posed by her former husband, Visakha. And then the other one is the Salayatana Vibhanga Sutta, which is about the six senses, and it gives an extended session on feeling. In this case, it's talking about joy and grief and equanimity, which are the moods or states of mind that are corresponding with the three kinds of feeling. And in that sutta, they make a distinction between the householder's feeling that's associated with being planted in your house and being getting into your house, wanting to stay in your house or wanting to get a better house. That's the householder's joy. And then the other alternative is associated with renunciation. And the renunciation is leaving home, getting away, getting out of it. It has a particular application for the becoming a mendicant, a renunciate practitioner, becoming a bhikkhu or a bhikkhuni who's given up, but it also has a more broader meaning, that is to emerge out of, to let go of, and to go away from this what's established and hedged in and contained. So the renunciate feelings are all based on insight. Knowing about impermanence, change, fading away, and cessation of all the phenomenon. Seeing all of them as they actually are with proper wisdom. Now, I think that actually being a householder who's really stuck into that grasping mentality makes it impossible while you're in that state. You don't have the opportunity to really have the insight to arise, especially when we're talking about the insight into cessation. This is coming to, approaching, definitely being on the track towards Nibbana. but beginning to let go, letting go piece by piece by piece, practicing letting go, becoming like holding all of the experiences that we have with an open hand, which is not clinging or grasping onto any of it. Even in a kind of a preliminary way, giving ourselves the kind of like this self-talk. This is not me, this is not mine, this is not myself. That then losing those commitments, getting off of the like the propaganda about me and mine, and letting that go. Then the more we let go, the more we have the possibility to really intuitively, directly, and in a way that doesn't go backwards. It's not the hedonic treadmill going around and around, but instead is going out, going forward, going away from samsara, to realize this impermanence, seeing everything as being impermanent, everything in samsara as being impermanent, suffering, and subject to change. In that sutta, whatever, when that shift happens, and one has the experience of no longer being trapped in a cage, then joy arises. For the one who's like stuck in this householder mentality, if you didn't get what you wanted, or if you lost what you had, then that's where the grief comes from. But for the one with insight, you have seeing that everything is impermanent, suffering, and subject to change. And then you got the possibility of getting a clue about Nibbana, about the supreme liberation. And you just have this last remaining a longing for liberation, which still has got it's got a flavor of craving. But then later on, that also goes away. But when one is, or you could say a trainee, one who's gained S-stream entry, one for whom the Dhamma eye has opened, one for whom the belief of the self in any one of the five khandhas has passed, one in whom greed and anger are coming to be more and more diminished until they disappear completely. All along that path, there's still that awareness, the grief, the nekama grief, the renuncia grief of wanting to know when one will abide in the base of the noble ones, the arhat's base. And then the householder equanimity. I said before that the person who's on the roller coaster doesn't notice the in-between states. In the sutta, it says that an ordinary person, they're not seeing the danger and samsara. They're just oblivious. It's almost described as like an animal type of existence. They're not happy, they're not sad, they're just going through the motions, just not yet asking, not yet inquiring. So it's called the householder's equanimity. But then the renunciant equanimity is, again, because of this constant meditation, contemplation about impermanence, unsatisfactoriness, and non-self, knowing about impermanence, change, fading away, the cessation of everything. So everything that's arising to our experiences, all of those contacts, all of those perceptions, all of those thoughts, all of everything, seeing it all as being impermanent, suffering, and subject to change, then one develops this cool, steady, actually powerful equanimity that transcends each one of the factors that's arising. As we come along on the path and we do that contemplation about the 3 marks of existence, then it definitely can arise that the contacts, which are the objects that are painful and hurting, are the ones that are pleasant and soothing. We still experience the beauty, right? We still experience what's painful. But the reactivity is, the recovery from a painful or pleasant contact becomes more and more fast. So that instead of being angry and upset for a week, you would be angry and upset for 10 minutes, or then you would be angry and upset for 10 seconds, or you'd feel a click of something happening, like something that arises in the body that in the past you would have connected that to anger, and it's like just something that's happening in the body. And you say, oh, I feel some adrenaline in the body, and it doesn't have the ammo's not there. Even if the gun goes off, the ammo's not there. It doesn't arise to creating biased perceptions or creating unskillful choices, unskillful formations. I'm going to stop here and for the last few minutes see if anybody has any questions that they would like to put into the discussion. Just now I put up the 2 sutras that I referenced, which are very worthwhile to reflect on if you want to see how amazingly contemporary the teachings are. I'm going to give a special call out to Rachel Smith. So sweet for you to come into this class, and I hope that it's you could at least find something to enjoy in it. So with that, I think we'll come to an end for tonight. We can close by paying respects to the Triple Gem. Araham Samma Sambuddha Bhagava Buddhang Bhagavantang Abhivademi Savakato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammam Namasami Supatipanno Bhagavato Savaka Sangho Sangham Namami